So one of the big things that was talked about before the Nintendo Switch was revealed, during the reveal, and after was what was the hardware innovation that Nintendo was going to bring to the table with this new system. Now, there are multiple different thought processes about this, and this is something that I talked about at length on Twitter and also on my channel. What does Nintendo do, or more like, does Nintendo have to do some type of crazy innovation or quirk or gimmick for hardware? And I've argued that Nintendo, over their multiple decades of making hardware, that they don't always go for some type of crazy gimmick, and that they've actually iterated on systems multiple times. So let me give you guys an example. The NES to the Super NES, or even the N64 to the GameCube, or the Game Boy to the GBA, or the Nintendo DS to the 3DS. So in my opinion, they've iterated and made different advancements on hardware that has been successful before. However, there are other people who feel that no, Nintendo has to do some type of crazy Wii Remote or Wii U gamepad or something like that with every single hardware. So there's definitely differing opinions on that. So recently, there was an investor meeting. We had Nintendo's sales numbers and all of that, where we go over everything, or at least Nintendo went over everything. And the investors actually get to ask questions to the president of Nintendo, Mr. Shuntaro Furukawa. And that got brought up about the innovation and what they're doing with this system over the Nintendo Switch 1, and especially with the games that are coming out. So Mr. Furukawa actually talked about that, what they're doing, and revealed that games like Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza couldn't be realized on the Nintendo Switch 1. So we're going to talk about what he had to say there and a number of other things, plus touch up on another story that we discussed before with Chrono Trigger as well. So it should be a good one. So let's go ahead and get right into what Mr. Furukawa had to say about the Nintendo Switch 2 innovation and what's going on with these games as well. So, quote, "The development of the Nintendo Switch 2 began as an official internal project around 2019, but we are always conducting research and development of new hardware, including basic technical research. The Nintendo Switch has been blessed with many good fortunes, and even in its 9th year, many customers are playing it." Nintendo did state over 100 million, and they will, this is a side note, and they will continue to put games out. So like Rhythm Heaven, in addition to the Tomodachi Life game. So yeah, there's also that. Now back to this. On the other hand, over the past 8 years, software developers have come to need higher hardware processing power in order to realize one of Nintendo's most important values: proposing new ways to play. Therefore, this time we aim to design hardware with a large capacity in terms of processing power. We believe that Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza have proposed new ways of playing that could not be realized on the Nintendo Switch. Regarding your question about the innovation of the hardware, the Nintendo Switch 2 may not look like it has changed much. However, in reality, both the hardware and peripherals have been redesigned from scratch, and we feel that it is a very Nintendo-like product, filled with various ingenuity and the attention to detail of Nintendo's development team, who develop hardware and software together. Going forward, we will develop various titles centered around Nintendo Switch 2 and provide new play experiences. We aim to make Nintendo Switch 2 the new standard for Nintendo Switch by creating hardware that continues to give consumers fresh surprises. So this is definitely interesting, because if you look at what Nintendo did with the first titles that came out for the Nintendo Switch 1, and you compare that to what they did with the Nintendo Switch 2, you can see that there was a fundamental shift in terms of what they're trying to do. So for example, a game like Donkey Kong Bonanza, I'm very excited for this game, but this is a game where you can break apart and destroy many different aspects of the level. That's something that would probably not be able to work in its current state on the Nintendo Switch 1. Being able to break apart, being able to destroy things, and especially doing that at 60 frames per second with the visual fidelity that Donkey Kong Bonanza has. But it's a gameplay mechanic that's going to create fun and different types of things, and finally gives Donkey Kong exactly what Donkey Kong is: a big freaking gorilla that's incredibly strong. Whereas in the past, I'm not saying that it was a hardware limitation in terms of what they did with these games, but in the past, I mean, it's a 2D platformer, obviously. He gets hit 1 or 2 times, he goes running off, he jumps on people's head, he can ground pound and do some things and roll into people, but it never really showed the brute strength of what a gorilla could be or what a gorilla could do. And with the Nintendo Switch 2 hardware, you can see that as he's ripping apart and breaking apart things and climbing all over stuff, and it shows that brute strength, which I think is going to be fun for many Donkey Kong fans. If you look at what's happening with Mario Kart World, for example, that is a game where I didn't think that they'd make an open world Mario Kart game, because I didn't think that they would have the type of system or the type of, I would say, tracks to do that. Mario Kart's always been one way, where you essentially have your track, you go to your track, you race around it, and that's that. You know, we've had open world games for a while now at this point, and that never really got brought up, but they actually used the processing power and the upgraded specs and everything to create a full open world Mario Kart game. And then on top of that, they doubled the player count from 12 to 24. So that's something that you would absolutely need some stronger hardware to do. I do think that there are some innovations when it comes to some of the other stuff that they've done with the hardware, like mouse mode and certain things like that. But I understand how some people maybe feel that it's not quite enough when it comes down to everything. But I would say that, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how the games actually play, because that's going to be where the innovation and where the fun and where the, I would say, uniqueness of Nintendo comes through, is playing the awesome games overall. And it looks like they're going to be throwing everything at this system, which we've already kind of seen. We already got, I think, like 4 or 5 5 big first-party games plus smaller titles and stuff coming out this year. Nintendo Switch 2 editions on top of that. So I think there's going to be a lot of cool games and a lot of surprises for fans out there in the future. But what isn't going to be a surprise are all the people that are hitting that subscribe button that are not subscribed yet to the channel. So hit that sub button, hit that like button, and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop. Now, let's go ahead and move on to another topic that Mr. Shuntaro Furukawa had to say, and that has to do with Nintendo Switch Online, which has definitely been a love-hate relationship with many fans out there over the years, but I do think that it has gotten better as time has went on and they've added in new systems. We now know, of course, that Nintendo GameCube is being added to the mix day one on the Nintendo Switch 2 with games like Wind Waker, in addition to Soul Calibur 2, which that will have online play with Link for the first time ever, and F-Zero GX, also online play with your friends, first time ever officially. So here's what Mr. Furukawa had to say about Nintendo Switch Online. Quote, "The number of Nintendo Switch Online members varies depending on the sales situation of the hardware and the trends in the release of titles that utilize online play. But since the number of members was disclosed at the last management policy briefing, the number of subscribers has remained stable without any significant increase or decrease. Looking ahead, we will release titles that utilize online play, such as Mario Kart World for Nintendo Switch 2. In addition to releasing these new titles, we aim to maintain and increase the number of members in the mid to long term by further expanding the service of Nintendo Switch Online itself. On Nintendo Switch 2, members of Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack will be able to play GameCube titles as classic titles. In addition, we will introduce a game chat communication function for all members. Game chat will be available for free until March 2026, but after that, you can use it by subscribing to the paid Nintendo Switch Online service. Game chat was developed with the aim of recreating the experience of playing games together as a child in the current environment. Until now, you have not only played the same game by bringing it together, but also played different games while in the same place. By using the functions of Nintendo Switch 2, you can recreate this experience not only in an offline local multiplayer, but also online. Game chat can be enjoyed not only with Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive titles, but also with Nintendo Switch titles. We hope that game chat will add new added value to software and even allow customers to create ways of playing games that we have never imagined. Nintendo Switch Online also offers Nintendo Music. The service is based on music, one of the attractive elements of games, and is provided with the aim of allowing customers to remember Nintendo characters, games, and IP even when they are away from their game consoles. In this way, we believe that Nintendo Switch Online can be used from the perspective of expanding the points of contact with Nintendo IP in familiar places for customers. We want to grow Nintendo Switch Online in the medium to long term as a service that consumers can enjoy and subscribe for a long time. To achieve this, we need to continue to create attractive elements that will make people really want to join the service. So I do think that, yeah, they've hit a little bit of a stalling point with NSO. I think it was around 30-something million subscribers. And in order to get more people to actually subscribe, they definitely need to increase and improve the performance of NSO. I think that obviously the online play, things when it comes to the netcode with certain games and certain stuff like that, that needs to be improved on the Nintendo Switch 2, which I think that they're doing with the new MPLN servers that went into effect in 2021. I think that now that there's been more time and games can be built specifically for that, the different tests that they've been able to do, I think that maybe they can achieve that, which would be good. GameCube, I think, is key to getting more people to subscribe. You've got to build off of that nostalgia and the awesome GameCube games. People love GameCube, and if you bring over a lot of the super expensive games that GameCube has on the market, on the open market right now, I think that would really help bring over more people to Nintendo Switch Online. Adding more Super Nintendo games, adding more Genesis games, just adding more content for people to be excited about it. But I do think that game chat is a pretty dope feature, and yeah, it pretty much could recreate some of those multiplayer sessions and just playing back then as a kid. I know that's one thing that my brother and me were actually pretty excited about when we both talked about this feature, because we used to play games all the time together. And obviously now, you know, decades later, we live far apart, so playing games together is not really an option normally. Yes, I can go see him and fly over there, but it's not normal. But we both, when we first saw this, we were like, oh, this is pretty cool because we can have the camera up and we can play. Even if we're not playing the same game, we can still hang out and chill in that type of way. He doesn't do Discord. He doesn't do all the online chats and stuff like that. He's kind of more of a casual fan of gaming, but he still plays games every now and then. And the game chat feature with the camera and with the built-in voice and all that type of stuff, I think that's going to be a way for families to kind of reconnect, friends and families to reconnect in a certain type of way that you couldn't have done before on Nintendo systems. So I think that's pretty cool, and I think that that could help also get more people to subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online, because I don't think my brother ever subscribed to it, but now he's going to subscribe to it because of the game chat feature, so we can hang out and talk and stuff and see each other on video through our system. So I do think that that's going to be a pretty good feature, and it could help when it comes to getting more people to sign on. But of course, yeah, all the other things that I talked about, online play stuff, needs to be improved and all that. So we'll see exactly how Nintendo handles everything in the Nintendo Switch 2 era. So what do you guys think about what they have to say about NSO? Let me know in the comment section. And of course, what do you think that they can do to add to NSO to get more people to be excited and subscribe to the service? But let's go ahead and get into the next topic, and we're going to discuss going back to Chrono Trigger. We talked about this, how there was a little bit of a mishap with a Chrono Trigger remake and everything at the Naples show. And Mr. Yuji Horii actually heard about that, obviously heard, and he actually gave a little bit more of his thoughts on that. And now at this point, he's officially stated, not just through a mess up through a translator, but officially stated that he is contemplating a Chrono Trigger remake. So let's talk about this here. This is what he had to say when it comes down to it in a recent interview. Quote, "Yes, it is. It has been a long time. Yes, I want to do something. Currently, Dragon Quest has seen 3, 1, and 2 remakes. I get a lot of requests for the remake of Chrono Trigger as well, so I'm starting to contemplate on it." So there you go. He's starting to contemplate on it. Not that it's going to happen 100%, or that he has something in the works, or people are working on it, or anything like that, but essentially, he's thinking about it now at this point. So that's definitely better than what it was before, but at the same time, still not something that us big Chrono Trigger fans would like to hear. Listen, guys, it has been like, what, 30 years since Chrono Trigger, the original? This is a legendary game. We have seen this game essentially die out when it comes to the brand overall. They've done some little things here and there. We did get the Chrono Cross remaster, which was nice. That was not a bad thing at all. I did like that. But outside of that, and then the PC release a number of years back, there really hasn't been anything. They haven't even taken the game and put it as like a Super Nintendo ROM download on NSO, or re-release that outside of, I think, like the PS Vita. They did like the PS Vita, PS3 classics, but outside of that, they've really done nothing with this, especially on modern systems. PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, heck, even the Wii U when it comes down to it, right? Like even the Wii U. Now with Nintendo Switch 2, people are remembering what made Chrono Trigger great. People are seeing Dragon Quest 3, Dragon Quest 1 and 2. People are seeing the classics come back. They're seeing the HD 2D art style, and they're saying, hey, What about Chrono Trigger? This game is still good. It's still legendary. People still think it's better than a lot of the main and new RPGs that come out today. We need something with this game. And I think that eventually it'll get done. You know, eventually they will do something. Eventually they will think of what they want to do, the direction, the content, and they'll get something out and it'll be incredible. And I've said this once and I'll say it again. I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 is the perfect system to bring back this type of thing. This is the system to get it done with Chrono Trigger HD Remake. Something like that would be awesome. Obviously, you can put it on all systems if you want to, but I think that at a Nintendo Direct, with the Nintendo Switch 2, maybe in the next year or so, where they really start to lock down, get it in development, and then they have something to present, I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 with the Direct, it would go absolutely nuts there and get the most maximum amount of exposure and excitement, and people excited to try this classic, especially for the younger fans who do like RPGs but weren't alive when this came out or just didn't really pay attention or anything like that. So I would really love for this to happen, and I hope that it does. But that's going to wrap it up for this video here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.